we're gonna go over the different joint motions. And even though these are going to be relatively rote memorization, the reason why this benefits you is because when you can understand the different motions that are going on at each joint, it also helps you break down different exercises so you can understand what muscles are being activated. So here we go. So we've got Courtney here down by our side. So starting with the shoulder, we've got shoulder flexion, which is where she brings her arms straight up. So if you're imagining like an anterior deltoid raise, that's what we're going to be doing right here. Then you've got shoulder extension. That is when her arms go behind her. And so what's interesting here is if we're doing a row, what we're going to do is we're going to see that that upper arm shoulder is going into shoulder extension. All right, so bring it down and then go back up into shoulder flexion again for me. Now, if she brings her arms out to the side, that is horizontal abduction. And if she brings them in, that's horizontal adduction. Again, this is all, go ahead and bring it down. This is all helpful information because when you learn what muscles are being activated, you're going to learn in terms of what joint motion they're producing. So joint motion's very important. Then what we're also going to do is we're going to go to a abduction, which is her arms going all the way up. And then adduction is all the way down. So if you have a tough time remembering the difference between abduction and adduction, is you can think of ABD as being abducted by aliens, all right? So she's getting abducted by aliens, bring your arms up. And then she can remember the adduction with the ADD as an adding back to the center of the body. So that was shoulder abduction, shoulder adduction. Now we're gonna go to the spine, and forward flexion at the spine is just gonna be rounding at the spine. So really round at the spine, not at the hips, right? Okay, perfect. So keep reaching forward with your arms. So this is spinal flexion, which is gonna be, I had her round because what she was doing is she was hinging forward at the hip, which is hip flexion. Go ahead and stand back up. So that's spinal flexion. And then spinal extension is gonna be going back. Great, go ahead and straighten it back up. Another good thing to know about that one is when she does spinal flexion, let's go into that again. The primary muscle involved is the rectus abdominis. That performs spinal flexion. Bring it back up. And so what happens sometimes is when people are doing crunches or core exercises, you'll notice either the trainer or the client or whoever is having them keep their upper body straight. And what ends up happening is they're hinging at the hip, which is not what the rectus abdominis is. The rectus abdominis isn't engaged, so you're kind of missing the point of the exercise. So we'll do hip flexion, as we can see. Now just hip forward. There you go. This is hip flexion. Go ahead and stand back up. And let's do hip flexion, bringing it up this way. So you can see, and then now we're using the hip flexors. So you can see, go ahead and put it back down, how important this stuff is so that you know the fancy exercise that you're doing, that you're actually targeting the muscles that you want. So we had hip flexion, bring that leg straight out in front for me this time. Hip flexion, and then hip extension goes back and away from the body. So most of our hip extension muscles are gonna be the glute muscles. Go ahead and bring it back in, which are typically underactive and wanna be activated anyways. Then we've got knee flexion. So flexion of the knee, perfect, and knee extension, perfect. Those are pretty straightforward. Keep your foot out for me. And so when she pulls that foot up like this, now we're in dorsiflexion, which most people have some weaknesses right there. And when she points the toe down, that's plantar flexion. So the way I remember that, because it can be confusing because we use the word flexion in both circumstances, is to remember plantar flexion as how you would point your toe. So you associate the P with the P, and there you go.